Hello, Nick Anderson here with the Fake News Media again. Now I'm on the coloring portion of this particular cartoon, the digital painting. I need to create another layer, so I don't want to paint on the ink layer. And this one's on Devin Nunes, and he wants to hold sessions in contempt. Give me a break. So let's get going here. It's kind of a little bit of a, yeah, there, that's a better tone for her skin. Okay. I also have the inking part of this video taped. So this is the second part of this video. And I usually start with the skin tones for some reason, just out of habit. They tend to be, require a little bit more patience, and because you just got to get them right, and then I work out to the easier stuff. I don't know if that's really quite the right tone, but it's close. You can see I'm not real precise with my brush strokes. That's maybe a little too thin. But you don't have to be. In fact, I kind of like a little bit of messiness. It makes it look like art and not like a computer drew it. So the light source is going to be coming from here, so I have to keep that in mind as I digitally paint this. The shadow will be on the back of his head and the light will be hitting his face. And it's going to be, usually I use a whiter light, but this is going to be yellow. So I'm going to have that reflected. If you hold a yellowish light to up to somebody, it's going to have a little bit of a yellow reflection. And a little bit of white in there too, so it's not so yellow. It's a little too yellowish. And then I'll go back to the skin tone and start darkening it and giving it some shape. And I'm going to do a kind of a harder shadow with a different brush that's a little too dark. With a little bit more defined shadow. For the back. And same on her. Actually, I'm not going to do that yet because I want to give her features a little bit more shape first. That's a little too dark. Give it a little bit of yellow. Little splash of white, that's too much. Make it a little bit more subtle. And a little bit of red, kind of a little blush type color. And do the same on her lips. This needs a little too thick. Make that brush smaller. Oh, made it too small. Oops, alright. That almost looks orange. I'm going to make that a little more red or pinkish. A little darker down here. And a little white highlights. So let's zoom in on that. As you can see, it's still pretty rough. Erase this here. And now I'm going to go do the same thing I did on the other face. Do a little bit of a harder shadow on the back. Give it more shape. Okay, I think that looks alright. It looks a lot better than it did just when it was line art, when it was just line art. Starting to come together. So now I'm going to create another layer over here to the right. I'll make our blonde. I'm going to change to a different brush. Make that bigger. That's getting too big. Okay, there we go. And now, because it's on a different layer, this layer color is covering over what is beneath it. See, I can kind of cover up because this is an opaque. The paint here is pretty opaque, so it can cover up what is in the layer beneath it, kind of like real paint would. This is an acrylic. If it was a watercolor, it would bleed through. And there are watercolor variants here. Okay, so now this I want beneath that layer. So I create another layer over here so that I'm going to get rid of this for a second so you can see. Okay, see I painted on her face. When I put the color gap back in, you can't really see it. I'll probably erase that just in case it bleeds through a little bit, but if there's a little bit around the edges, it's not a problem. So now I'm going to give it a little bit of definition. Wrong brush. Problem with that is it's too close to her flesh tone. I'm going to go with a different brush. It's got a little bit more definition. Switch to this layer again. Oh, didn't do it. There we go. So this is a watercolor brush, and I like this one because of that. See that edge that it has to it? That's why I use this brush, because it's stylistic. It adds kind of a nice texture. Whoops, can't use it on that layer. I won't get into the reasons why. I have to go back to that layer if I want to do, otherwise it won't blend right. So now I'm going back to the top layer. And I'm going to add a little bit more color variation in here. Go back to that bottom layer, add a little bit more color variation there. And I didn't particularly like this drawing, the line work. I don't like how it turned out, but I'm liking the this, I'm liking it better now. Alright, I need to make this a little bit darker. That's too dark. I'm going to add a little bit of blue. You don't want everything to be a uniform color. I need to go back to this layer. That's turning green, that's no good. Make this a little bit darker just with a gray. And a little bit more, that's too much. I want to add a little bit more color. A little bit more vibrance to her hair color. And I'll make that layer visible again. Voila. Oh, I got a problem here. Did this on the wrong layer. So I've got to get rid of this. I'm going to erase that. It's distracting. Okay, that's looking reasonably good. So it's starting to come together. Okay, now I'm going to make his suit, I'm going to go with gray. I will often give politicians' suit a color just because to brighten things up, but in this case the cartoon is bright enough on its own with this light source that I don't feel like I need to make the cartoon overall any brighter. A little bit more shadow here. That's a little too much. Alright, now give his tie a little splash of color. Changing the brush size. Erase his, make his teeth whiter. Give a little splash of white along here. See, I'm just erasing a little bit, just to give that a little bit more, give it a little bit more highlight. Same here. All right, and clean this up a little bit over here. All right, that's looking all right. Now I'm going to use a color, whoops, what did I do there? I think I did something. Switch to a different layer. I'm going to go with this layer. What color do I want to use to shade? I think I'm going to go with a little bit of bluish color so it doesn't all, to give it some variation. Again, I'm using this brush with the kind of harsh that I like to use for hard shadows. It helps give shape and definition. Now, see, I can paint over this and go back and delete some of that later. Alright, now I gotta get rid of some of this, because obviously that looks bad. If I had done that on a layer beneath that, I wouldn't have had to do that, but I wasn't thinking ahead. Alright, I need to erase that a little bit. Okay, now the flame. Start with a little yellow, add in some orange, don't like that. Doesn't look quite right. So I'm undoing that. It's a little too thick, and I didn't like the color of the orange. There, that's a little bit more fiery looking. Use the eraser to give it some shape. Alright. And now I'm going to go with another layer so I can add in this glow without messing with anything else. And if I overdo it, the nice thing about working in layers, if I decide, that's a little too strong, I can lighten it up. Not sure what I'm going to do yet. But I tend to, when I start a new layer like that, I tend to go with erring on the side of being a little too dark, because it's easier to lighten it than it is to darken. At least with a slider. Alright, a little bit of orange. That's a little too much. I will probably lighten this up because I think it's a little too strong. I'm not sure. And I'm going to come back in with white. So where is that? Okay. I'm going to delete this because I feel like I have too much. I need a little bit more white. Alright, now I'm going to go in and clean this up, and then I'm going to probably stop the video so you don't have to watch the whole entire process, otherwise I'll be here all day. Getting the color going doesn't necessarily take too long. Doing the refinements can take a while. And yeah, I think I'm going to lighten that up. Probably. Yeah, I think that looks better. Alright. Oh, I did that entire thing without saving it. That is dangerous. Save. Okay. Now I've saved my work. That's the problem with doing videos, is sometimes you get carried away and you forget to save. Alright. Be sure to check the final cartoon, and I'm going to end this video. Keep in touch.